today's topic by Robert Kiyosaki's book, Increase Our Financial IQ, which is the fifth B. So let me just go back to my drawing here. So the fifth B, the brides and the beau from Increasing Our Financial IQ of Robert Kiyosaki. So I'm going to be presenting 11 lessons, 11 takeaways from today's topic. The fifth B is the brides and the beaux. So Robert said people marry for money. And whether we like it or not, money is important, especially in any marriage. Now, lesson number 3. Robert has a term called love predators. And what is love predators? The book says love predators are people who marry for money. And lesson number 4, the more money we have, the more love they have for us. Lesson number 5, example is Paul McCartney, or was Paul McCartney. He's from the Beatles. The Beatles is a very famous band. So Paul McCartney, he got divorced from his wife. So there was a split between him and his wife. And so what happened? 50% of his $1 billion estate went to his wife. So Robert said, Paul McCartney is a musical genius, but when it comes to money, when it comes to financial intelligence, especially financial IQ number 2, which is protecting our money, his financial IQ number 2 is low. Lesson number 6, Rich Dad says, when we combine love and money, that will lead to financial insanity. Financial insanity reigns. It is not financially intelligent. Lesson number 7. Robert and Kim, when they got married, they didn't have a lot of money, but they had an exit strategy. Kim owned a corporation. Robert owned his own corporation. Kim had her own investment. Robert had his own investment. So if they ever split, they do not split the assets. Now, it's a good thing that Robert and Kim are still married today since 1986. But if they were ever to split, just like this, Kim will have her own, her assets will not be split, and Robert's assets will not be split. Lesson number 8. So what I learned from the book is exit. We got to think of our exit before we even enter into any agreement, and that includes marriage. Because why? The book says it is insanity to think that we're all gonna live happily ever after. Lesson number 9, things change. Therefore, exit strategies are very important, especially of high value. Lesson number 10. Now, it is very, very uncomfortable. It is very uncomfortable to ask for a prenuptial agreement. However, it is financially intelligent to do so. Lesson 11. When we're forming a business with a new business partner, it is very difficult in the beginning of the formation to think about the buy and sell agreement, or to think about the divorce of the business partnership, or to think of the demolition agreement. So what that means, it is very difficult to think those things. And if we don't think of those things, it is not financially intelligent on our part. So that means for each one of us, we always have to think of the exit before we even enter into any agreement. Because like the book says, there is no living happily ever after. So those are my lessons from today's book, the 5th B of increasing our financial IQ. So stay tuned for more of Alka and Ria's show, and let me know what you learned in the 5th B of today's topic.
Ria, thank you so much for sharing that. So a prenup, why is it that people ask for prenups? Is it because of protection? Are you protecting the individual? Why is it people ask for prenups?
Yes, so just like what I learned in the book, people usually do prenups, especially people of, higher net worth, to protect their own assets. So just like what I showed in the table, if ever the two-person splits, Kim would have her own assets, would have her own corporation, and Robert has his own corporation and has his own investment. So those investments will not be split because they are Kim's and they are Robert's. They are not pulled together. So if you do not have prenup, then yes, just like Paul McCarthy in the example, his 1 billion estate was cut into half and 50% of it was given to the wife.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, we are talking about and we hear of the people that are wealthy, that we'll hear of celebrities, we'll hear of people in general, like in high class net worth. So they ask for prenups. Some I've heard of, some may not, but obviously it's to do with protection. But obviously now we're talking about the wealthy people who can and who do. But what about for the some? Because viewers, they might be asking the same question, or they might be having the same thought process. It's like, okay, what about the average Joe? What about if, say, they divorce, they split? What then?
Yeah, so Robert and Kiyosaki, before they were, they got wealthy from all their apartments and from the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, just like the book said, they got married with no money, but they had the exit in mind. So they already had prenup, even if they were poor. Now, for me, for example, my husband and I didn't have any financial IQ coming into the USA. We don't have any prenuptial agreement. So it all depends on what your financial education is coming in. Kim and Robert Kiyosaki were financially educated before they got into they got married. I think Robert had, several businesses before he actually got into the Rich Dad Poor Dad. He talked about he was in the rock and roll business. He had his Velcro wallet and he went bankrupt into it. So coming in, they were both already financially educated. So for majority of us, middle class and the poor, we're not financially educated. It's unfortunate. And so when we do find our loved one, we think that we're going to live happily ever after. So we don't, protect. We don't do a prenuptial agreement.
Right. Mm-hmm. So then another question that I have is, so I like that. I like the strategy. You need to exit. You need to see what is your game plan, what's your exit before you even enter into like a business agreement, contractual agreement in business or life, right? So I love that. Exit before you
enter.
Before you enter, yes. So the viewers also might be interested to know, or they might be thinking of the same thing. So why is it that people need to have an exit strategy before going into anything?
Yes, so that's a great question. I look at it this way. When I buy properties, I look at it, number one, do I love it? Number two, I look at it, what is my exit strategy? Especially if there's a downturn or there's a bad economy, when I exit, do I exit just selling it to an individual owner, a first-time home buyer? Do I exit because he's an investor? Or do I exit like our mentor, Grant Cardone, does he exit by becomes paper? So when I buy these properties, I think of exit first. Who can I sell this property to? I don't want to sell to individual companies. I want to sell to a bigger company, such as the hospital. Why? Because my location is perfect. I'm just right in front of the hospital. So even before I buy these properties, I always think about the exit. What can I do? If there's a downturn, who's going to buy it? Will the primary homeowners afford it? No, but who else can afford it? Bigger companies such as the hospital. Why? Because of my location. So location strategy are very important. Exit is very important.
Wonderful. Love it. So when you talk about split, and and I love the analogy you gave. So when people split, so in general, most often, what I've heard of anyway, most often they split their assets. So if you got divorced, okay, I'll give you my example. So when I got divorced, all the assets was kept. My ex had it. So sometimes when people do split, does one person keep the asset, or does it, like Kim and Robert, they individually had their own assets because they were financially IQ, they had their corporations. So for the average Joe, what happens in that scenario?
Now, disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a CPA, so consult your CPA and your lawyer. But from my understanding is that because there is no prenuptial agreement, anything you own before marriage and during marriage will be split 50-50. Like I said, I'm not a CPA or I'm not an attorney, so consult. But just like Paul McCartney, they didn't have any prenuptial agreement, and he had $1 billion of estate. So 50% of it, according to the book, 50% of it was given to the wife. So if you were not given your 50%, then you can sue the guy. You are legally should claim because you were husband and wife before you got divorced.
Absolutely. Well, Ria, that was, great conversation. And friends, if you enjoyed the conversation, absolutely drop it. Let us know as to where are you, first of all, in your in life. What stage are you at? Where are you at? Do you going forward, just keep in mind that you always want to protect yourself. Doesn't matter in business, life, you want to protect yourself because you are the asset, and whatever assets you have, you want to make sure you get that protected. And as Ria said, if you don't get that 50%, you need to ask for it. You need to ask because you were married once upon a time. So Ria, wonderful, love that. And friends, so if you enjoyed this conversation, I think it's very important that we always keep at the back of our mind as to what we need to do and how we sort of go about protecting, even in business and life in general. We don't need to get into contractual agreement when it doesn't seem fit. So we always need to just have an open mind. So friends, we have come to the end of the show, but thank you so much, as always, for tuning in each and every morning. We value you. So have an amazing rest of the day. Make the rest of the day the best of the day. And